Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us. This is our first panel discussion of the new year, 2023. So we just want to take a moment to thank you all for being with us. And also to just let folks know that this event is being hosted by CarePlus New Jersey's IDEA Committee. And IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and I feel maybe the most important part, action on inclusion, diversity, and equity. So thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you most especially to our panelists for coming together around this wonderful topic. Just a small bit of housekeeping before we dive in. If folks have questions as we're going along, please feel free to put the questions in the chat. We will be collecting the questions and actually answering them out via email afterwards. So we will be following up with our panelists if there are any, outstanding questions, having them provide some wonderful answers and then emailing them out to folks. So please feel free to put some questions in the chat. This particular topic, the purpose of this panel discussion today is really to review the importance of mentoring with emphasis on our BIPOC community, so Black, Indigenous people of color. Each January, we come together as a community to ignite passions and help turn folks' wildest dreams into reality with National Mentoring Month. January is National Mentoring Month. By raising awareness for how one conversation, one experience, and one mentor can change a young person's life. Mentorship is known to be key to academic and professional success. Yet, BIPOC students and employees often express greater difficulty in reaching out to potential mentors and developing a relationship with them. Studies have documented the impact of threats to belonging, the feelings of being unseen, unwelcome, or unrepresented, not only on academic achievement, but also on health itself. And this is why we feel it's such a timely and important topic this month, but really every month, and why we're so happy to have you four wonderful folks with us to speak on this topic. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Our first question is going to go to Lisa. So let me give a little background on Lisa. Lisa Giudici is the current Community Programs Manager for Mentoring and Bergen Reads at Bergen Volunteers, which is a nonprofit organization in Hackensack. Bergen Volunteers was founded over 55 years ago, including the launch of the mentoring program 45 years ago. Lisa has been entrusted to run these programs during the 3.5 years she has been at Bergen Volunteers. Matching volunteers with clients who need additional support is the core foundation of her role and what inspires and humbles her on a daily basis. So Lisa, thanks for being with us. Our very first question, what is mentorship? And what are the advantages of folks having mentors to reach their goals?
Well, thank you for having me, Jen, and thank you for acknowledging Mentoring Month, because January is very exciting around here. What is mentorship? So mentorship is a unique one-on-one relationship between two people that is, the goal is to grow and to develop and to end up in a better place than you were when it started. Typically, one person is more seasoned, more senior, more experienced, just a little wiser than the other. It can be in a work environment, social environment, even within a family. Mentors provide support and guidance and really teach by example. They're consistent and they show up. And that is so important in some of these lives of the youth that we see. They show up and they're consistent. They're generous with their time. And we encourage our mentors to show the mentees the resources that are available in the community that they live in. It's not just about taking them places and doing things. Of course, that's part of it, but it's making them be a little bit more independent and showing them what's available to them that they may not be aware of. Our mentors, they walk beside their mentees. They don't lead them, they don't follow them, they meet them where they're at. And we go over this in training so much because it is so important. Everyone is in a different place. Everyone has something different going on at home, in their all aspects of their lives. So it's very important that our mentors meet them where they're at. Our program at Bergen Volunteers is goal oriented. So the match lasts for 1 year, but at the 3-month mark, we ask that the youth comes up with a goal that he or she wants to work on. It has to be, achievable and smart and just realistic, but there's no homework. There's nothing to stress over. It's just a way for the mentee and mentor to focus on something each time that they're together. We never ever dictate the goals. We can help with ideas if anyone is struggling, but usually that's not an issue because within the first 3 months, they're getting to know one another. And by the 3-month mark, they've come up with something. To give you some examples, some mentor mentees, the mentee wanted to learn Russian. And so that's what she did. And the mentor at first was kind of like, Russian? But they went to the library, got some books, and each time they were together, they went to the diner. The young girl was homeschooled. So going to the diner was so great. And they sat across from each other and interacted, and they learned some Russian. And that was good enough for us. We supported it. Sometimes it's developing life skills. Sometimes it's just exploring Bergen County, going to museums, doing things they don't normally do. I'll give you one more example. I have right now, I currently have a mentee enrolled in the program. His name is Joseph. He's 17, and he has been going to school at home all of high school up until his senior year. And so COVID did a number on some kids, as I'm sure we're all aware of. And he was just, kind of more comfortable being at home. He was an avid bike rider up until a point when he went to the park near his home and was bullied a bit, excuse me, and his bike was broken by some kids, and he never wanted to ride again. And so I matched him with a volunteer, Dan, who is a retired person, but very active and very physical and very, loves to ride bikes. And he thought, oh, this is good. So slowly they just got to know one another. But before you know it, they were going on hikes. At some point, Dan brought an extra bike he had, put it on the back of the car, and they just explored different places. They went bike riding, they go bike riding, they go to the Patterson Falls, they go on hikes. But after each activity, they go and have a burger at a local place. And so that has become their thing. And what they are doing is creating a journal, and they have documented every burger place they've gone to with the address and everything. And then they write a review. And so when the year is up, they'll have this whole journal, and that's good enough for us. Joseph is thrilled. His mom says this is the best therapy that is around. So to me, that's mentorship in a nutshell. And a mentor can really help with the goals, whatever the goals may be, because it's always easier to achieve a goal when someone is with you. And I think we all can attest to that, whether it's an exercise routine or any new project you're starting. It always is helpful when someone holds you accountable.
Yeah, in community, right? And Lisa, I really like that you mentioned walking beside the mentee and the mentor, right? Yes. Not necessarily guiding them right. In terms of what the mentor may have in mind, but right. really letting their goals be driven by the youth in this scenario that wants to be in that relationship. So important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm gonna hop over to Samuel. So Samuel Bellamy is the program officer for Coastal Community Foundation and has increased the effectiveness of community and school-based mentoring programs, working with young men of color over the past 10 years as a mentor and youth development advisor. He uses his years of experience as a capacity builder and strategic implementer to offer youth mentoring programs a variety of resources for capacity building, empowering programs to adopt and improve the mentoring practices that have a long-term sustainable positive impact. So Samuel, thanks for being with us as well. What would you say are the advantages of youth having mentors in general, and how is your program helping to achieve this?
Yes, thank you so much, Jen, for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be on with all of the panelists here. So, there's no shortage of research and lived experiences that speak to the advantages of mentoring. You have the usual suspects that include improved parent-child relationships, increased confidence, a sense of belonging, resilience, improved grades, mental well-being, and then there are some more nuanced things like mentored youth having access to a wider network and resources that they can rely on beyond the classroom. Those are all wonderful advantages of mentoring. Our organization specifically, we exist to broaden and strengthen mentoring in South Carolina. So we focus on creating capacity within the youth serving organizations around the state by providing no-cost technical assistance and training. Our whole goal is really to improve the quality and the quantity of mentoring relationships for young people. And along with that, we want to expand the movement by collaborating with our civic leaders and our stakeholders to discuss and implement relationship-centered practices and policies. And that's what our organization, hopes to do.
Thank you so much, Samuel. And I feel like having that buy-in from civic leaders, obviously the community, schools, all of those pieces is really paramount in making this a great community effort.
Absolutely.
Great. So I'm going to hop over next to James. So James Castillo is the Director of Operations for the Boys and Girls Club of Lower Bergen County and has 19 plus years of youth development experience, working in various capacities and with youth from ages ranging 3 to 21. He's worked in various communities throughout New Jersey and has experience administering federal, state, and private sector grants. That's always something that's helpful, James, because those grants can be very confusing. In his current role, he serves as the Director of Operations for the Boys and Girls Club of Lower Bergen County, as we mentioned. And there he supervises before and after school programs for 6 sites distributed across Bergen County. So James, thank you so much for being with us. We wanted to ask you first, in regards to mentoring for teens, for young adults, what trends are you seeing for our BIPOC youth, our Black, Indigenous youth of color? What are maybe their more specific needs for mentors?
Well, thank you so much for having me be a part of this conversation. I think all of us that are here are very passionate about helping youth, being a part of mentoring. And yes, it is mentoring month, but this is a time to highlight it. It should really be a 12-month thing where we're really working towards helping young people really achieve their goals. Not just young people, but all people in general. And some of the trends that we've seen here at the Boys and Girls Club is actually very varied. We have locations all throughout Bergen County. We have Wallington, Maywood, Lodi, and Hackensack. And oddly enough, the needs of the students and the teens and the preteens actually vary from community to community. As crazy as that might sound, we might be a 5-minute drive between Lodi and Hackensack, but some of the needs of the students vary very immensely. Some of the trends that I'm noticing here in Lodi with the team that we work with is more so in terms of post-COVID dealing with anxiety and stress and reintegration into just being in groups. So that was initially one of the big things that we saw coming out of it, especially with the younger youth. We have kids that may have been in preschool and post-COVID now they're first graders, second graders, and they don't know how to properly socialize, and their parents are dealing with having them reintegrate into schools and understanding that as a parent they have to kind of let go, whereas the last 2 years they've really been under the umbrella of the household. So as crazy as it might sound, I know the pandemic, I know we're still kind of going through a lot of the effects of it. At least socially and psychologically, a lot of people are still dealing with the after effects of that. And those are things that we're still dealing with on those levels. So for Lodi, I would say it's primarily things related to that and the after effects of socialization. With our programs, we have a very formal and informal way of providing mentoring. We actually receive grants through Boys and Girls Club of America that allow us to provide a very formal, prescribed curriculum that incorporates some elements of mentoring, where our staff are actually trained to become formal mentors and actually do tracking sheets and follow up with students on an ongoing basis. So that allows us to really customize that approach. Like Lisa was kind of mentioning, it's a relationship building process, right? So it's not like it's a one size fits all for everyone, right? We really have to cater that approach to the students that we're working with with the understanding that sometimes those relationships work and sometimes they don't. So really understanding the human element of that and where we might need to pivot and put someone else to work with students because they might connect better. In our Hackensack sites, some of the things that we're noticing, especially over the last year or so, is the concept of unaccompanied minors, which was students that are coming in from other countries, primarily Central and South America, that are being sent over the border without family, without parents. These are now people that are being thrust upon into a new culture, a new environment, in some cases living with people that aren't even relatives. They're just friends of a friend that happen to be someone that they know from their original country of origin. And as you can imagine, that's pretty jarring. That's very traumatic for the kids. So that type of relationship establishing is very different, because you're trying to help a student deal with that. We have a social worker on staff, and we work with the school district to kind of help mitigate some of that. But as you can imagine, there's a lot to unpack in those types of situations before we can even start establishing those relationships to kind of get them towards the direction that we're hoping that they can get to. So, I mean, I can go on and on. I know we have other people here talking, but it's definitely working with the kids is not a one size fits all, but even working within communities that are relatively close to each other, it's not a one size fits all. So it really takes a concerted effort from the team to make sure that we're really addressing the community's needs.
James, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to look at it of just like, what is the need for the community, and not put necessarily that individualistic, humanistic need to it of it has to be a good fit in terms of mentoring, really in terms of anything, right? Same with mental health clinicians. We have to be a good fit to be effective. So a good fit for that youth, meeting them where they're at, understanding their individual set of needs is so important. So really, thank you for kind of anchoring me back in that. That's absolutely the case. And I think something that we can all think about in terms of mentorship, we all can fit into this puzzle. Where could we effectively help other youth, right? And fit into that mentoring piece for them. So important. So I want to come last, but certainly not least, over to Lieutenant Mike Perez. So Lieutenant Mike Perez has been with Bergen County Prosecutor's Office since 1998 in a variety of assignments. I know you gave me like a long list there, Mike. Most recently, since November 2019, Lieutenant Perez has been assigned to the Community Engagement Division to promote awareness and address the needs and issues facing local communities, while seeking to build and strengthen relationships between Bergen County residents, Bergen County resources, businesses, schools, and various law enforcement agencies, which we know is very important for a variety of reasons. Mike, I'm wondering, for and within law enforcement, why and how is mentoring so important?
Right. First, I want to say thank you to the Care Plus staff, you, Jen, for allowing me to be part of this panel. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the other panelists on this conversation today. It's so refreshing to hear the work that you all do. Gives me like goosebumps. I feel a little warm and fuzzy inside to hear what's going on in the communities, because sometimes we tend to forget, and it's always good to be reminded of the great work that's being done out there. In terms of mentoring and in law enforcement, it's probably one of the top joys of my job. I'm very thankful to many that came before me, and during the process of my career here at the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office, that mentored me and gave me like sound advice on a lot of different things that helped me. So I kind of look at mentoring as like paying it forward, and it's so important. And again, it's one of the top joys that I have here as a law enforcement officer. Like the other panelists said, I can give you a variety of reasons why it's important, but I'll start off with saying that like our youth are growing up so fast. Like they are exposed to so much information and so many situations that require them to make very difficult decisions at a very young age. So mentoring from a law enforcement perspective is super duper important, in the sense that it could be like valuable guidance, more or less, on helping them make those decisions when they're confronted, be it peer pressure, or even like on social media, like hitting that send button and stuff. So the ability to be able to, teach and encourage and talk to youth or any mentee in that process about the decisions that they're going to be making that can affect them greatly in the future is so important. I feel like mentoring is a way of like creating bridges for our communities and almost like a deposit in the community equity bank. So it provides or affords us to be transparent in our practices. I'm sure that many of you have seen like or know this from personal experience. If the wrong information gets out there, it can really do so much harm. So like affording mentees an opportunity to like get truthful information, firsthand information on our practices, and then letting them more or less be the messengers of what we do and why we do and how we do is so important. I think we take advantage sometimes, or we just lose sight of the fact that people know what we do and why we do it. And every time that I've had the opportunity to mentor youth or any prospective future law enforcement candidate, like I've come to learn that like there is a gap there. And I think mentoring is one of the ways to build bridges for that gap and giving the correct information to our communities and explaining what we do and why we do it. It's also really important for inclusion and recruitment, right? We want our law enforcement to represent our communities, all members of our communities, and this is a great way to more or less, again, build that bridge for inclusion, diversity, and to continue on this career of helping people. I think if you speak to most law enforcement officers, one of the first responses is going to be like, I want to help people, and law enforcement or different careers in law enforcement afford people to be able to do that. So it's a great opportunity to more or less build those bridges, make those deposits of equity in our communities, because ultimately we live in our communities. We're human. Like, yeah, we have a job, it's law enforcement, but we're human. We have families, we have kids, we live in these communities, we go to the schools. So, there's strength in numbers, and be able to work with those communities via mentorship, I think is so important. And again, one of the joys of my job.
Thank you so much, Mike. I know you picked up on social media, which we could probably do a whole other thing on, because yes, especially with our youth, that is quite a scary thing. But you were also bringing together a lot of threads that all of us have started to kind of touch upon. And I know, because I already know the questions I'm going to ask all of you, that will come up in our second question as well for you, Mike. But yes, absolutely, that inclusion and the importance of law enforcement being representative of the diversity of the community and part of the community. It really cannot be overstated. So thank you for bringing us back to that as well. Samuel, I'm going to jump back over to you for our next question. In regard to mentoring youth, what trends are you noticing specific for our BIPOC youth? And I think we hear this in mental health world, so I'm thinking it may be similar in the mentoring world, that it can be great if youth of color in particular see folks that look like them, right? And how important it could be perhaps if your counselor looks like you or has lived experience, perhaps as you do as well. Can you speak a little bit to that within mentoring?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm starting to see a return of youth-centered narratives, which is necessary, since in every era that's ever existed, movements that resulted in significant changes in the nation were by and far led by young people. And while I say that not to diminish the efforts and the work that those who are more seasoned in life have contributed, I think we're seeing the beginning of youth and young people in general just beginning to recognize and use their collective voices and strength to address really their own problems, which I think is really the result of effective mentoring. Young people who are in charge of their own agency and who are empowered to confront unjust systems that affect them. I think that's really where the nation benefits. So while it's great to have, individuals that kind of mirror, their lived experiences and all of those things, it's really nothing if we don't empower the youth themselves to do some of this work. I think one of the biggest downsides of mentoring as a field has always been this narrative that it takes a older seasoned person to mentor. And the reality is, if you have any sort of lived experiences, you can contribute to this field. So it kind of dispels that myth of you needing to be like this super mentor to be effective. By providing just the skills and the resources and the networks, a lot of times the young people have the resilience to do what they need to do. Like Mike mentioned, they just need guidance. They just need that know-how. So that's the trend that I'm seeing. I'm starting to see more of it. I wish I could see even more of it, because young people really do have the answers. And a lot of times it just takes us adults to get out of the way for them to do what they need to do. So I hope to see more of that. But that is one thing that I'm seeing a lot.
And Samuel, sometimes easier said than done, right? We have to get out of the way. I'll remind myself of this, I'm sure. But I hear what you're saying, and thank you for referring to it as a narrative, because yes, a lot of all day long what we're doing is the stories we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves about other people as well. And we can really do a disservice by being locked into a narrative. One of these narratives that you're mentioning around mentorship is it has to be this mentor extraordinaire, perhaps very seasoned, all of this experience, which, yeah, sure, that's great. It's not always necessary though, right? And so not downplaying the fact that maybe any one of us can be a fantastic mentor. And really also just reminding ourselves that maybe sometimes you do have some of the answers, even though that could be scary. I know for some of us parents and other folks watching. Thank you so much, Samuel. Lisa, I'm going to hop back over to you, specific to this thread that Samuel was bringing up, dispelling this myth that there's a perfect mentor. Can you tell us about some of the programs that Bergen Volunteers offers, so perhaps some of us watching and listening can see where we might fit in to this larger mentorship puzzle? And Lisa, I think you just have to unmute. Sorry.
Sorry. Before I do that, let me just add to what Samuel was saying. I have a lot of energetic mentors who come my way, and they go through the training and they're very eager to go out and do these grand things. And at training and throughout their match, I try and tell them, you don't have to do that. This doesn't have to cost a fortune. Just, sometimes going to the park, bringing a board game or a football to throw around, and pack a lunch, that's okay. And that's enough. And they do realize it early on. And it's great, because that's really what life is all about. It's just making that connection. So I agree. Okay, so Bergen Volunteers, we run so many programs here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about them. Our mission is to provide human service and training programs to ultimately improve lives and strengthen the communities. We have been around for over 55 years. As you said earlier, our mentoring program, I'll start with mentoring because that's closest to my heart, has been around for over 45 years. We have long-term mentoring and short-term mentoring. Long-term mentoring is what I was speaking about before. It's the more traditional mentoring where you're matched for 1 year. You meet every other week in person with your young person. We also mentor adults. We have a caregiver program, so anyone caring for someone else can get a mentor if they need that. And we also mentor first-generation college students, because there's a need for that too. Young people going through that experience for the first time. That's all part of the long term. We also offer short-term mentoring, and what that is a senior program, senior citizen program. So we match volunteers with homebound seniors who receive a weekly phone call check-in and just say, hi, how are you? How's everything? And you speak to the same person each week, so there's continuity. And we do say it's a month-to-month commitment. This program came out of COVID because people were wanting to do things at home and seniors were feeling very isolated, so it was a win-win. So it started really in the beginning of 2021. And I will say that so many of the matches that started then are still matched. And some have even met in person. And it's so wonderful to see, because a lot of our seniors are very isolated. I also manage Bergen Reads. Bergen Reads is a program where volunteers go into elementary schools in Teaneck and Hackensack and read to students for 1 hour a week. The teachers identify those students who need some extra help. And so they meet for 30 minutes with one student and 30 minutes for another student. And that program has really just taken off again since COVID. And I have, I think, 167 students signed up who are receiving help. So there's really a need. And it kind of just goes back to what James was saying, like things got really lost with young children, especially in the early years, the kindergarten and first grade. We have 3 senior programs. So we have Cheer. And Cheer is a program for senior citizens where volunteers go food shopping on a weekly basis for them. They're homebound, and in many cases, that's their only contact with anyone. And so it allows them to age at home and stay home in their, where they want to be, and their food is delivered to them. We also have Chore, and that's another volunteer-driven program where volunteers go into the homes of seniors and do light home repairs. Maybe change the batteries on the smoke detectors, or take the air conditioners out of the window, or install grab bars. That's mainly what we do because we want our seniors to be safe at home. So that's a great program. We also run Redefining Retirement, which is a program when it's also run by volunteers, where someone retires and isn't quite sure what they want to do now. So they can kind of connect with these volunteers and figure out the opportunities that are available to them at nonprofits throughout Bergen County. We also run VITA, which is a volunteer income tax assistance. We're gearing up for that right now. We have volunteers, we train them so they're IRS certified, and they do income tax returns for low-income individuals, senior citizens, anyone who needs that help. They have to meet certain criteria, but we get hundreds of people signed up, which is great. We also run Bergen Leads, and that's a leadership program. It runs for 10 months. It usually starts in September through June, like a school year. It's for adults who either live or work in Bergen County. And it's project-based. So there's always a project. There's always something that they want the groups to work on. And there's seminars, there's site visits. They go to the Bergen County Jail. They just see all the things that are out there in Bergen County, and it's a leadership program. So there's a lot of mentoring that goes on in there, which is great. And very similar to that, we have college leads and high school leads. And those are the same programs, leadership programs for those students in high school and in college, which is great. And of course, we always do different drives, food drives, all kinds of drives when there's a need. So after Hurricane Ida, we did all kinds of drives, we collected all kinds of items that people needed after Hurricane Ida. We always do a back to school drive. Right now we're doing a Warmer Heart. We have done this before, and it's for the seniors. So we're collecting blankets and tea and little cookies and games and things to keep our seniors, active and fed and warm during the winter months. So those are all the programs. And lastly, we also we have Get Connected, which is our volunteer database. So any nonprofit in the area that is looking for volunteers for something, they would let us know, and we post it there. So people just have to sign up, go to our website, and you'll get to see tons of volunteer opportunities throughout Bergen County. And that's often good for the kids. Sometimes a mom or dad will call me and they're looking for volunteer opportunities for their kids. So it's great. They could just see different things that are out there. You can sort by age or location or whatever it is they're looking for.
Lisa, it's amazing how many different things.
I know. I had to write it. I didn't want to leave anything out.
And you know what? I recognize a blind spot that I had myself regarding mentorship. I totally was not thinking perhaps of our senior population and, how important that is, right?
Yeah,
So
I know.
thank you for orienting us again to all of the different possibilities. And as I think James was saying, it's not just January, this is year round, right? This is
Absolutely.
year round.
Absolutely.
And Lisa, I think, do you even have a training tomorrow? Did I get that right? A
I
training?
did I postponed it because Reads has been consuming me, but yes, it's now February 11th. So anyone interested, there's a whole process before that, but definitely go to the website and you can learn more and then sign up and we go from there. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm happy you have a little breathing space though, honestly, because I was like, how is she doing this? And then that tomorrow, it's a lot.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm gonna hop back over to you, and you started to talk about some of these concepts, but I think it's just so important. How do you feel mentorship and community engagement activities help to build the bond between law enforcement and the community at large? I mean, specifically our BIPOC community, wanting to make sure that there's trust and everything else, there within that.
Well, for those who don't know, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office is a county agency, and Bergen County is not the largest, one of the largest counties in terms of residents and towns and police departments in the state. There's a lot of people living in Bergen County, and it's a big county, as I mentioned. And there's a north, there's a south, there's a east, there's a west, and depending on what part of the county you are in. The needs of that part of the county, it can be totally different from the opposite end. I mean, what it looks like on the north end of Bergen County, it looks very, very different in the south end, and likewise with the east and west. And the issues that reside in those or the needs of those counties or towns in the county are very different. Diversity-wise, you'll see some of everything, as one of the panelists mentioned earlier, Sammy. So making sure that no one feels left behind and recognizing that a need is a need. It doesn't, one's not more important than the other. And there's so many communities that make up our beautiful county here in Bergen and stuff. The BIPOC community is part of our community, and making sure that if there's a need in the BIPOC community, that as a county agency, that we do what we can to help and address that need. I mean, we're a super resourceful county. We have a lot of good things going on, a lot of great people in the county that do great things. So like working together, it leads to success, and inclusion leads to success. Unfortunately, most first interactions with law enforcement, comes at probably the worst times, right? Like you're going through something, there's an emergency, there's an accident, you might have been speeding, or there was a crime or something, right? Comfortably, I can tell you that like the resident would probably remember that incident forever, versus the law enforcement officer is on to the next, and unfortunately they may not remember. So things that like mentorships and opportunities to work together for our communities have so much value in changing that narrative, right? How wonderful is it to be able to like not let that first interaction be about like an emergency, and letting it be about addressing a community in need. I heard some of the programs that Lisa spoke about, and that's what we can do on a county level, right? We combine our resources, we combine our stakeholders, and collectively we address all communities in this beautiful county of Bergen and stuff. And I really take that to heart, and I'm very passionate about that. And I'm hoping that no community with a need is ever left behind, at least while I have the ability to do something about it and stuff. Mentorships do that, right? We talk about like uncomfortable situations, and that never gets changed unless we address it. And never becomes comfortable, So addressing and having those quote unquote candid conversations with all communities, are so important, because it makes our communities better when we address it. And again, the BIPOC community is just as important as every member in every community in this beautiful county and stuff. So mentorships, internships, community engagement projects, they afford us all to get together and address a need for communities that have needs. And it's so important to have, these types of programs in place. It's 21st century policing, if I can say it that way. Like, you get more with honey than you get with anything. And when you work with your communities and you build on the relationships in the communities, let me tell you the value that it has. God forbid that there's a critical incident or something major happens that, like when you build that equity and you have engagement and you have programs in place that you can rely on, to the trust that was built, that goes a long way. And I'm not going to get into any specific incident, but I'm sure you see it around the country when something happens, it's good to have a little equity in your community. So as a law enforcement agency that works throughout the county, not just specific towns, to have the bird's eye view more or less of some of the things that are going on in this town or this county, and addressing it with our stakeholders and addressing it with all different communities. It's a beautiful thing, and it only could be like I said, it's a resource, and there's strength in numbers. And anytime we work with communities and and create these partnerships that help needs or address needs, I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, Mike, I completely agree. I think if it's a lot easier if you already have that foundation there, and if there is some level of trust and community, it can certainly make interacting with folks feel easier and better and safer, right? So absolutely, continuing to build on that is just so important. And also, as you're mentioning, looking at it from the county view, the higher up view, perhaps maybe our town level views, and partnering with the towns as well and making this happen. So important.
And Jen, if I can add to that, we're a county agency and we don't have the hands-on or direct access to a lot of the residents in towns that make up Bergen County. So one of the things that we have, it's called the Community Engagement Task Force. And we have liaisons from every police department that participate and are members of this Community Engagement Task Force. And it's kind of like it gives us the ability to know what's going on in these towns when we don't normally have access to that information. And it allows us to more or less jump in front or address these issues before they become bigger issues. And it's been a tremendous resource. So not only do we have like the liaisons giving information, sharing information, and sharing events that they held that were successful and well received, but we can also, what was done in the South can be, shared up north, and maybe they can use it with their community before it becomes an issue or something that that can be a problem. But again, liaisons, partnerships, engagement, mentorship, all great things to address the needs of our communities.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. It's better when we put our heads together, right? To maybe tackle a community issue versus doing it in silos. So that's fantastic. James, I'm going to hop back over to you, and you started to touch upon some of these concepts, but I know Boys and Girls Club New Jersey has so many programs and different initiatives. Can you tell us about the various programs that you have? And you already did mention this, but mentoring is not one size fits all. So just kind of touching upon that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So each Boys and Girls Club throughout the nation is kind of an independent entity. So what I would say is, for those of you not in Bergen County, outside of New Jersey, definitely connect with your local Boys and Girls Club to kind of see what's going on in their facility and all the programs and cool things they have to offer. On a national level, this organization's been around for 160 years. So, it's been around for a while. And for us here in Lower Bergen County, we've been around since 1949. So we've been around for a while. We've changed as our community has changed over the years. Like Jen mentioned earlier, we have 6 programs across Bergen County. Just to kind of give a little bit of detail in terms of what they are, we have a program based out of Maywood through the South Bergen Jointure Commission, which is a program, it's a school district that actually works specifically with students with disabilities and special needs. So through that program, we're able to work with 15 to 25 students with disabilities, with special needs that normally wouldn't get to participate in any out of school time programming at all. Some of these students require a one-to-one, some of them are nonverbal, and these are students that districts from around the region can't support within their school district, and they go to this jointure commission where staff there are more equipped and better trained to work with students with disabilities. So this is a venture that we, the CEO and myself, we worked on because we noticed that it was a group and a population that was not getting serviced. And when we originally were looking to offer the program, we didn't find a lot of programs like it across the state because it's such a difficult program to launch, because from the funding aspect of it, you know, it's going to cost you a lot more because you're hiring staff that are highly trained and highly qualified. And on top of that, a lot of the students require such unique one-to-one support. So luckily we were able to launch it. Right now we have about 20 students there that are attending on a frequent basis. The parents love it, students love it. We also have another program based out of Wallington, and that's through the junior and senior high school. There we work with 7th and 8th grade students, and we're working in kind of exposing them to various possible career paths that they might want to take, science related. You know, right now what we did initially was kind of cast a wide net to get an idea of what they're interested in, to really cater the program to expose them to different elements of those careers that they're, you know, looking to get into. From my experience, what I realized is a lot of times, you know, people in general have their mindset on what they want to be right when they grow up. Like, I want to be this, or I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. And this happened to me in my personal life. You get to college and you realize that that's not really what you want to do. So exposing them to these careers early on, I think, gives them an idea of what the rigors are to go into those careers, and bringing people from those careers to come and talk to them gives them a better idea of whether it's really what they think it is, or perhaps there's an element of it that they like, and, you know, maybe exploring in another field that might have that more so. Other programs that we have in Thomas Jefferson Middle School here in Lodi, that one's funded through a 21st Century Community Learning Grant that we got from the state of New Jersey. And we're able to provide 200 students after school programming Monday through Friday there at the school. And again, it's very much career centered, career focused. So we expose them to a variety of different careers. We have also collaborations from different partners that come in and work with them. And we're able to provide them smaller learning environments, which is always great. A lot of times with the schools that we work with, we're talking about one teacher, 25 to 30 students during the school day. So when we're able to provide smaller learning environments with one teacher, 10, maybe 15 students in the class, it really, it helps students really be more engaged in the programming. And in a lot of ways, it allows them to develop socially in a different way. Sometimes larger class settings can be very overwhelming for kids, and they might not feel like they can be their true selves in that classroom. So these smaller groups really let kids develop skills in the educational side as well, but also socially, which is extremely important because we want to make sure that we're supporting kids in that way as well. Here at our Lodi site, it's our Lodi Club facility. So we have a building here in Lodi. We have students from 5 different elementary schools that come after school. And what we provide here is academic support as well as some enrichment activities. We have about 160 kids that come here on a daily basis. We like the facility that I mentioned earlier in Hackensack. We have a facility within the housing authority, which is actually close to the hospital. So you guys can always come down and visit. Is offered to free of cost to those that are housing members, and we provide the same services in the after school hours as well. And finally, but not least, we have our Hackensack Middle School program. That one is in collaboration with Hackensack School District. And we're able to offer an after-school program for middle school students to really get support in math, language arts, and science, in addition to a lot of the enrichment activities that a lot of the other sites get to do as well. The great thing about our organization is that we try to connect with on different levels, whether it's federal, state, or private funders, so that we can make sure that cost is not an issue for anybody that attends our programs. I think the majority of our programs are free of cost to all of the participants, which is great because that eliminates any barriers that parents or families might be facing in trying to enroll in these programs. And whenever we encounter families that do need additional support, we have a network of different resources that we can connect them with. In addition to that, we have a lot of other things going on in the community. We do an annual food drive for families. We do, and around Christmas, we also do Christmas gifts for kids that are in need. So we're very proactive in trying to connect with the community and providing different resources and support that we can. So I mean, definitely mentoring, like I mentioned earlier, it's an ongoing, for me, it's a 12-month-a-year thing, especially with my programs and my staff. And the mentoring doesn't just stop there. I mean, a lot of the staff that we have are on the younger side. So the mentoring can also work in terms of our staff. Like sometimes, you know, I'm mentoring some of my directors are mentoring some of their staff. And the idea is that it's a trickle-down effect, because if I am supporting one of my directors, we anticipate that they'll be given the same level of support. So I think that's something that's extremely key to all of us, whatever role that you're in and however level you do support the idea of mentoring. It's just really making sure that you create that relationship with that person and providing them an opportunity and an outlet. I think all of us can agree that everybody has different needs, but on a human level, we all need that human level contact. And some of us have it with some people and some of us don't. And those people that need that connection are the people that really need the mentoring a lot. And sometimes you'll find that to be young adults, and sometimes it'll be children, and you just have to make sure you keep an eye out for that.
James, I feel like I can't say anything better, right? You definitely closed this out with a really important thought. And even when we at Care Plus were thinking about doing this panel for mentorship, a lot of us said, we're a mental health agency, though. We don't really, do mentorship, but kind of reframing it. Yeah, we have a ton of interns, and that's a more formal type of mentorship, but that's a mentorship. And it's not just teaching them the things they need to obtain their master's or their bachelor's, whatever it may be. It's also the additional life lessons. And to your point, talking about careers, this is what a career in mental health may look like. Is it for you? Is it not? And that's fine either way, but really being with them on that journey, walking beside them, as Lisa mentioned earlier, so important. And James, not that I want to volunteer Mike over there, but I don't know if you need anyone from law enforcement, certainly if you need anyone from mental health land, I'll come down.
Count me in.
Count Mike in.
Count me in.
We're making connections. So I wanted to do a few things. First of all, thank everyone again for attending. Thank our panelists. We at Care Plus like to make a donation in honor of our panelists, continuing to sort of pay things forward, since they were so wealthful in giving of their time. It's a small thing that we can do. So our panelists today have chosen some various organizations for Care Plus to make a donation to. Following this panel, we will be making a donation to Low Country Youth Services, Rescue City in New York City, Bergen Volunteers, and also Bergen Field Dominoes Club. So thank you all for spotlighting those wonderful organizations for us to give to. I want to say, sort of in closing, I took this quote from Mentor, which is a company, Mentor Chief Impact Officer Tim Willis, and he said earlier this month, as we build back from the pandemic, as many of us touched on, that disconnected so many of our young people from important relationships in schools and their communities, we have a keen awareness of the power of mentoring to help youth form identities, feel seen and heard, and forge their own paths to success. National Mentoring Month is our call to action, though it really should be a year-long call to action, for caring adults in our nation to step up and become a mentor, to ensure every young person has someone they can call on. And Lisa already pointed out some of the blind spot in this. It's really all ages, and anyone can step in, as Sam mentioned as well. Samuel mentioned as well. So in that spirit, our call to action for those watching today is to consider what unique qualities you all have. What connections can you bring forth to your community? How can you get involved? with maybe some of the organizations we shared today, or whatever other organizations feel in alignment with you. But mentoring is really going to be about stepping forward in that regard, and just recognizing, get rid of the narrative in your own head. You have your own unique gifts to offer and your own way to fit into this puzzle of mentorship. So please think about it this month and every month moving forward. We want to thank everyone for being with us today, for watching. We do have a very fun t-shirt giveaway that we were mentioning earlier. So for the folks that were able to join us today, the live participants, we will be randomly selecting a winner, yay, and we will reach out to that winner and work with you in terms of getting your idea, Care Plus idea, committee t-shirt over to you. Thank you all, and we just wish you a beautiful rest of January, and go forth and mentor.
Thank you so much.